Ms. Mariam Jaafar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like many members of this House, I was brought up to believe that marriage is a beautiful thing, something to be protected. But like the members that have spoken before me, and most family law practitioners and women's groups, I support the proposal that providing a less adversarial, more amicable path for divorce and settlement of disputes without the need to blame either party for adultery, desertion, or unreasonable behavior will help to reduce conflict during a most difficult time, especially for those with less resources to lawyer up. And this will help parties to move on with their lives and the lives of any children involved. And where children are involved, understanding and acting in the best interests of the child is the most important thing. I do not think that the requirement to allege fault does anything to protect the sanctity of the institution of marriage or improve the lot of the child. Having said that, there are two aspects of the bill that are crucial to providing important safeguards in light of the proposed amendments. First, as described in Parts 3 and 4 of the bill, the provisions related to pre-agreement on matters related to parenting and finances, counseling, mediation, programs for children, family support programs, and reconciliation. These are all very important safeguards against the criticism that the bill makes divorce too easy. More importantly, it is in the best interest of the family. In the US, studies have shown that in about 10% of divorces, both parties are often open to efforts to reconcile. And recently in the UK, the same percentage, 10% of divorce proceedings started, are averted with counseling. Indeed, stronger processes for counseling and mediation pre-marriage, as well as before and after a divorce, must also go hand in hand with the current proposals in this bill. Second, as described in Part 5, the broader enforcement powers granted to the court over custody and child access orders. Of all the foundations upon which we build our lives, family is the most important. And we are moved to recognize that kids need their mom and dads to raise them. So society needs their moms and dads to raise them. We have all heard of parents, men and women, who have shirked their responsibilities as parents after divorce. But we have also heard of parents, again, men and women, though notably more men, who want nothing more than to remain a core part of their child's lives, but are prevented from doing so. One of my residents did not see his son for 8 years, during which he fought in court for his access rights, at great cost to his finances and his career. And he is the fortunate one. He now has access and a good relationship with his teenage son, but I have other residents who are still fighting, who are alienated from their kids, where once a loving relationship existed. To that end, I have a few questions and suggestions for the minister's consideration. One, will the government allocate more funding and resources to counseling and mediation services to provide trained help for couples, especially vulnerable couples, during the divorce process, but also prior to marriage and at the point where they face marriage difficulties, where marriage might yet be safe? Two, should there be a minimum time period for the proceedings to allow proper reflection and consideration and reconciliation? This should not prevent applications for interim support, injunctions, or family violence orders, and voluntary counseling and mediation should continue as planned. Further, has the minister considered making it a requirement for divorcing couples to take a parenting education course? Perhaps this is the MPP referred to by MOS, but including information on reconciliation, or to take it even further, making counseling and mediation mandatory. Three, regardless of the grounds for divorce, should there be a minimum period, say 6 months to a year, after the final judgment and orders, during which counselors and mediators check in on the parties to ensure both parents and children are coping well and that the orders are being adhered to. 4, there is in some quarters a perception that the system is biased against men, and there are a limited range of support services for men. Now, at this point, I want to recognize the millennial men, who I think take a much more equal role in parenting than their predecessors, and are often very close to their children. When things don't work out between the couple, they want to keep that bond. Now, I believe that for the most part, all services are equally available to men and women, but what is the government doing to address this perception? 5, fighting for access to their children is a costly affair that spends years for affected parents. But as my resident told me, when it comes to your child, you fight all the way. Even if it drains your finances, even if you have to represent yourself, which is suboptimal. Notwithstanding the provisions on enforcement of access orders, can more funds be allocated to legal aid and means tests relaxed so as to increase legal assistance to vulnerable parents? 6, will the government undertake a review of the definition of parental alienation, which is currently not tracked, to ensure that it can't be tracked, and to facilitate reforms to protect the rights, interests, and physical, mental, and financial health of alienated parents, and by extension, their children? And 7, finally, given that no area of law matters to more people than family law, will the government consider the establishment of mandatory accreditation, standards, and monitoring processes, including complaints mechanisms, and ongoing professional development and training requirements for family consultants, counselors, and all family law professionals, including judges, including in the areas of family violence and child abuse, unconscious bias, parental alienation dynamics, engaging and communicating with children, and disability awareness? Notwithstanding the above, I would like to thank the MSF for continuing to update the Women's Charter and to continuing to advocate for women and children's issues. I support the bill.